So happy Tuesday, everybody. Thanks for spending some time. Ha, thanks for this opportunity. Um, I love this stuff. This is basically what I've been, this kind of early stage, lots of different ways to think about the frameworks for it, but essentially like early stage product development is basically what my career has been focused on. And so I love talking about it. So I appreciate the opportunity. And I see some folks that I recognize here, which is great to see. And for those of you that I don't know, I'll introduce myself. So the prompt that Ha gave me just to sort of level set here is, okay, cool. You built the product. Now what? Um, and so, yeah, for those of you who I don't know, my name is Jeremy Barton. I go by JB, and yeah, co-founder at SuperInterviews and Sidebar. So before that, I've been working on, Sidebar, essentially. SuperInterviews is a product of Sidebar. I've been working on Sidebar for almost almost 5 years at this point. And so before that was at Meta in product and growth roles, spent about 9 years at Meta, worked on products on Facebook and Instagram, Messenger Your Kids, and the health team. So I actually have an example from some work at Meta. And outside of work, yeah, outdoorsy dad. I played basketball really seriously growing up. I was a rower in college, and for fun, I'm now a bad DJ. So that's me. All right, so we'll dig in and look. I have a bunch of time for Q&A, but if there's something that pops up, just react to it in the chat, and we'll make sure to spend some time at the end on it. Want this to be, this time is really designed to be useful for you. So, buckle up and ask questions. I think it's gonna be a great conversation at the end. I just have a couple slides here to frame up some thoughts on this prompt. And so the first one here is like, look, you know, this is something that I really had to learn myself, especially kind of coming from a place like Meta. And I feel like I'm still sort of, in some ways, unlearning many things that I picked up at Meta. There's lots of really, I think very fondly of my experience, really grateful the opportunity I had at Meta. But as a founder, look, you just have one goal, and your goal is to win. That's it. So I want this time to be helpful for you in that founder mindset and really thinking about that goal, that very simple goal, which is to win. And if you are an experienced founder, I would love to learn from you. If you are somebody who is transitioning from, a sort of more traditional job, for lack of a better word, and becoming a founder, I think it's really important to think about just being scrappy and really thinking about this goal of how to win, and lots of different ways that people describe how it's different to be a founder and really just trying to make something work versus working on a project at a larger organization that could be earlier stage, could be more mature. And so I just wanted to start with this. Your goal is to win. So in that context, I think this is where I wanted to start, which is just spending a little bit of time thinking about this trap that I've fallen into, and that a lot of folks that I've had a chance to interact with as they are on this founder journey. They basically built the product and they fall into this trap. And so you've done the work and you've researched a pain point that's meaningful to you, right? You did this discovery with customers. That's awesome. Great job. Um, and with AI and with products like SnapDev, you've built and shipped an MVP. So you have something that's out there. You can use it. Your friends can use it. People can use it. That's also awesome. Very important part of the journey, obviously. Now, big uh, pitfall and something that I've fallen into for sure is that after you have that MVP, you really start to just go into tactics. I'm trying to think about getting people to use your product. All right, maybe I should do this post on LinkedIn. Blogging, that's a good idea. Ads, how do I think about all these different ways to get this product in front of people, which is important, but going into those tactics too soon is really that trap. And ultimately, where that can land you as a founder is you can get stuck. And it's confusing, it doesn't feel good. And you sort of have this mixed bag of signals, and you really don't know if you've built something that is going to work. You don't know if you have something that has that early stage of market fit. You don't know if you have something that can scale. And so, just a level set, I think that that's the trap. And so, um, from that, I wanted to spend a little bit of time sharing some of my thoughts on early PMS and really what that feels like. And I think feeling here is important because there is no shortage of different frames on PMF. Um, very good thinking out there. I'll share some references. But for me, I really always like this concept of the feeling because I think it's really powerful. And I'll talk a little bit about what I mean here. So, in the context of PMF, I'm putting this here to think about that goal, right? So we want to win. And so you have something, you've built it, you want to avoid this trap. What does this early PMF look like? So in my view, you have this product, and specifically it's this initial set of features, and you really can find that it's providing this compelling, consistent value to a specific audience, and you feel this visceral reaction from customers who use the product. So they have a chance to interact with it, and it's like, oh, I had this pain point, and this product really solves it. So you can really feel that when you spend time with customers, you hear their feedback, you watch them use the product, and that is really powerful. I like to think about that as that magic moment. And then upstream of that, you start to feel some of the demand from this audience that you're really focused on. And you can see these decent conversion rates from, okay, I want to go, focus on this specific type of audience. And, you can think about ways to reach them. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And you see these conversion rates that are decent for people actually getting to this magic moment. And then you start to see these signs of not only that visceral reaction from people, but it just, you're kind of compelled to tell you about it and start to tell their friends about that experience too. And so for me, I think that these are some of those signs very early on in the journey. And we don't have much time here, so I'm sort of oversimplifying, but that's what it really feels like in my experience when you have a solution that's just solving this meaningful pain point for people, and they really react to it, and they want to start to tell other people in their network who they know may have a similar problem. And this can be for consumers, this can be for B2B as well. Shreyas Doshi has a really sophisticated definition of PMF, so I link to that. I'll share the slides here so if people want to go to it. I referenced Shreyas's class, um, been fortunate enough to receive some advising from Shreyas. He's been really involved with what we've been doing at Sidebar and the SuperInterviews, and I think his definition is really strong, and it actually has a lot of different types of market fit to think through. What I'm talking about here is just that very early stage, what that looks like and what that feels like. So our goal is to win. We want to avoid that trap. We're thinking about market fit, those very early stages. And this is where it's really fun. So It's a lot about this iterative loop. So um, I think that a couple points I wanted to touch on here. This is where strategy and really thinking through um, the market that you're playing in and where you are positioning yourself on the market, right? So you kind of think about that classic two by two, and in certain spaces, you can kind of see like, well, other solutions that are on the market right now have different um, qualities. Some of them are really positive. Areas where there are gaps in solutions, that's where you want to think about, okay, cool, here's where I'm really playing. And I think that's that positioning of where you see the product that you've developed or developing play a key role for customers is really important. And then you really think about, okay, great, for this uh, this segmentation, right? Like, who am I really focused on? And this strategic work is so important. And this is something that I feel like I'm just learning still all the time on. I think I'll mention a couple resources for strategy, but the strategy here is you're starting to think about the product that you have and how you want to really take the steps to get people to use it. Um, this is so important, and it's a really creative exercise. This is why I think this iterative loop of starting to think about this early stage product you have and getting people to use it and seeing their reaction to it is so fun. And so it's really creative. And the process here at the end of the day, right? I think we all can get into the weeds of, thinking through where the product is and the details of how people are reacting to it, where are they in the flows. Um, and that's all really important, but ultimately, yeah, it's a lot about just the thinking that you can do as a founder about the product you have and the vision you have for it and how you really want to position it and who you want to speak to. And so it's a lot about that thinking, and that really quality thinking pays huge dividends. And then it's the experimentation from that. And the loop that I like to think about here is really just you have this audience segment. And so it's like who you really want to focus on speaking to. What's the channel with which you're going to be able to reach those people? What kind of message do you want to put in front of them? And then what's the reaction you're getting? So that's the loop that I think is really successful for people to run through. And when you're thinking about that reaction, we talked a little bit about market fit and that feeling, right? And so I think it's this combination of understanding the reaction with data. So having a good sense of, okay, for example, I wanted to go speak to um, other founders for my product. Maybe I'm solving a problem for founders. Where do founders hang out? Okay, well, maybe they're hanging out in certain Slack communities, or maybe I want to do, try to get something up on, Hacker News. So you think about a place where you can go reach into that channel, and here's the messaging that I want to put out. Um, and then you really see what that reaction is. And so the data here, just understanding all the way through how people reacted to that message. Where did people get stuck? Where were these big drop-offs in that funnel? That data is really important. And then what I love in particular is you just get to this opportunity then to reach out and talk to people. And I think that this is something that takes a little bit more effort and is often overlooked because of that. But the qual feedback is so valuable. Just the be able to go talk to, you go look at it at the funnel and you go say, okay, well, these are the people that actually made it to the magic moment of this product. I want to talk to them, but don't disregard the people that didn't make it there, right? So think about trying to reach out to people who are upstream of that and didn't get to the magic moment. Why did they stop? What hesitations did they have? Just incredibly rich insight that you'll get from talking to a few people. So that qualitative feedback you could have in addition to the data of what you see is so, so valuable. And people are really excited to help and to talk with you. And so I think just, simple outreach and talking to those people, getting that quality of feedback, so valuable. And then you iterate. And so, you go through this process, you run an experiment, test that hypothesis, see what you learn, come back, and you just continue to do that. And that's where you start to see this loop where you feel that reaction that's very, very strong for that specific segment. That's where you can start to feel some confidence as a founder that, you did that listening, you have that MVP, you're using it, your friends are using it, but then some people outside of your network are starting to use it. You have that focus on a specific segment, you know who you're talking to, and then you're seeing this reaction from them that are like, oh, okay, cool, this is awesome. I love it. And they're telling you about it. You can feel it when, you have these interactions with them. You'll see it in emails that they'll send to you. You can just kind of have those different touch points of how people are having that strong reaction. And you're starting to see them, wanting to talk about that with people in their network. So again, a very simple outline here of this iterative loop, but this loop is so powerful where you start to be able to develop a little bit of that flywheel, and you can kind of build some of that initial momentum of, taking something that you have, starting to get out there in front of people and really feel that reaction. So I'm going to go through a couple of different examples. And then I have some resources I'll share, and then we'll dive right into Q&A and just have a discussion about this. I think, again, I love talking about this, and I'm sure there's some folks who have really good thoughts and builds on this too. So first example is Messenger Kids. So the context here for this product is, so this is a product that I worked on, sort of part of the initial team that did the research and developed and launched and then grew this product. Context here was that Meta wanted to, Facebook at the time, Meta wanted to have a product for people who are under 13 years old. And there's an opportunity to serve this segment of the market because, especially in the United States, there are specific rules and regulations that apps have to adhere to if they are building for younger audiences. So COPPA is an example of regulation, the Child's Online Privacy and Protection Act. So you have to have special, permissions for how kids can use those products, younger audiences can use a product, and how that has to relate to parent approval. And then you have to have more sensitive data protections put in place. And so there was an opportunity because there just was not much on the market for young audiences. And so, Meta thought there would be an opportunity to create a solution here in this space. So we did research on the space, found that there was an opportunity in messaging, and that, we felt that messaging was going to be a great way for, providing a lot of value for kids. Like kids really love to start to, as they're getting older. For parents here, right, you probably see how interested kids are in screens and phones, tablets, things like that. And so they're really interested in messaging and communicating. So there's a lot of research on the space and found that messaging was going to be a great way to really introduce, in a safe and responsible way, introduce, the way for kids to think about communicating with their peers and with family. And so we really found that out through a bunch of deep research, quantitative research, qualitative research, and then we built the product. And I think there's 2 points I want to share here in the context of this iterative loop. So very quickly, we built a prototype, and one of the most formative times for the team is that, we actually took this research trip to Arizona, and we just, spent some time with a bunch of kids and their families, and we had this initial prototype, and we had a couple of different versions of this prototype, and we were really trying to understand like what parts of, the communication aspects of a messaging app were really important to kids. And so we had one that was more, messaging forward, kind of text messaging, maybe like a lot of emojis, and one that was more like video chat forward, where you can make a call. And just the reaction that we got from kids when they were doing video calling was just so strong. They just loved it, right? And especially like video chatting with putting a mask on, or some AR, or kind of VR effects. And you just see kids in separate rooms, like they would just run to talk to each other, talk about, oh wow, like I can chat with you, I'm not in the same room, and like look at us, we're like playing, putting on these different masks. And so that's sort of this first point where we're like, oh wow, like we just felt this visceral reaction from how much fun kids were having doing this video chatting. And I think part of that was also, parents really feeling like they had control over who kids were talking to and could review the activity. This is a big part of the Messenger Kids value proposition for parents. And so that positive reaction from kids, coupled with a positive reaction from parents, understanding that they could really, control exactly which friends a kid could chat with on the app. So we really took that away. And then we went and developed MVP, tested it further, and then we developed the product we actually launched. And the way we thought about, launch and really proving that we had to ourselves, proving that we had market fit, was really by looking at retention. So we looked at, the J curve of what engagement was like for kids and parents using the product. And that initial sense, and we kind of put that framework out of, okay, here's what success is going to look like for us to understand market fit, feeling conviction around that, and then feeling confident that we had something that people really loved and that we would want to grow. So the whole team really understood that measurement of retention, and we also supplemented it with qualitative signal. And I think just in understanding that and putting that out there for the team, people really had good clarity and conviction about, okay, great, this is what the whole team was working towards. And then once we hit that, we really felt confident in, trying to scale the product and grow. So I think those were the 2 points for us, just like that really strong visceral reaction with an early prototype that people, had such strong response to. And then second, having a clear frame of, from a, more objective standpoint, great, we felt like this product was something that people really liked and, could even love, and then felt confident in growing it. Two more quick examples. So for Sidebar, so the context, if you're not familiar with Sidebar, Sidebar's mission is to catalyze the success of extraordinary leaders. And so Sidebar's flagship product, Sidebar Circles, something that you know very well, Ha. And in the early stages of where we were with Sidebar, we were really trying to understand, we knew that, as professionals, we spend so much time in our lives working. It's such a big part of our identity and who we are. And getting help and support as a professional is really important. So we tested, really understanding how to provide that support to people. And so we actually tested a bunch of products related to, one-on-one coaching, and one-on-one coaching sort of adjacent services. And then we really started to understand what it could look like to do, group work, and to provide this space for people who were professionals who wanted to connect with other peers in their network, get that expertise. And so we developed an early stage prototype here. And similar to that early stage loop, we had a hypothesis, or that iterative loop I was talking about. We had a hypothesis that we wanted to test. And so we, focused on really understanding the market and where we wanted to play. And our hypothesis is that we could really help, folks who were in the technology industry connect with other peers at their level. And so we built a really early stage prototype, and the reactions from people using this prototype were so strong. Like you could see that magic moment reaction of people getting to it. And so that ability to be in that group, to be in that safe space with other peers, people just loved it. And so we then from that reaction felt very confident in growing Sidebar and really trying to expand the community, scale the product. So I think that the lesson of this iterative loop for us was really kind of going through the process of understanding different types of solutions that we had prototyped that would really ultimately solve that pain point for the professional who wanted support, wanted peer connection, wanted to continue learning and growing. So third example here is with SuperInterviews. So SuperInterviews, the context on SuperInterviews is this is the product of Sidebar. One of the lessons from Sidebar is that a big part of helping a professional grow in their career is helping that professional feel supported in their journey in a career transition. Big part of what people were just talking about, lots of really interesting content in Sidebar was always around job transition. So we noticed this opportunity here to really help professionals in that job transition going from job A to job B. So we did a ton of research to really understand what that job transition looked like, and and we learned that people were getting stuck. A lot of professionals get stuck in that interview stage, and so we felt like there was a great opportunity to leverage some of the capabilities of AI to provide this opportunity for professionals to practice interviewing for a job before the actual interview came up. We noticed that it was really challenging for people to get good feedback, to feel like they could do enough repetitions to practice interviewing, and to really understand what was going to be ultimately important for nailing an upcoming interview that a professional had. And so that's what we built with SuperInterviews. And so the very first thing that we did after we had this research is we just had an early stage prototype, and we had a hypothesis that we wanted to target professionals in the tech industry going for product management and sort of similar roles, a more senior level. And so we would just what we did to very early testing this prototype is with that hypothesis, we would just post the opportunity for people to test the product out, and they would do that with an onboarding call with Calendly. And then we would walk people through the prototype that we had for SuperInterviews and just get the reaction, get the feedback from customers as they were using the product. And you could really see at those points where people were getting stuck in the process, and then also where they had this really strong reaction to positive aspects of the product that were really helping them. And ultimately, after just kind of testing, having hypothesis, running through that iterative loop, testing SuperInterviews, we felt confident that we had something that was worth really bringing out to market and scaling further. And so, just wanted to end with this example because I think that this is where we are with SuperInterviews right now, and continuing to scale this product, build new use cases off of this. It's an important part of the overall Sidebar ecosystem that we have supported professionals, and it's just been very exciting and humbling process to go from that prototype that people have, or prototype that we have, to putting in front of people, hearing that reaction from them, looking for that visceral type of response. People being like, "Oh, this is great," or like, "What is that? That makes no sense," right? So having that ability to get that feedback has just been it's been how we've really learned and iterated on this product. So a couple of resources. Um, Number one is just think about yourself as a resource and this ability that you have to listen deeply to customers. And I think that like truly listening is actually a skill. And as a founder, this is something that I think it's worth taking some time to understand where you may have gaps. I know I try to pride myself on my ability to listen to people, but it's hard when you're working remotely. There's always something to look at on your screen. I got this next meeting coming up, all these different aspects of, what's distracting us in our day to day. And that ability to tune that out and just listen deeply to what somebody is saying, not try to take notes, just try to hear and feel from them what they're saying and what they're trying to communicate to you. That ability as a founder to really lock in is what I see separating some founders who are successful from those who are not. So that's a resource that we all have. It's a skill, practice it. That ability to listen deeply to customers, so, so important. Number two, your customers. So early stages, right? These can be your friends, can be family members, but those customers are a fantastic resource for you in this early stage where you're thinking about that work to test a message, to see a reaction, all the way through that funnel to, the hypothesis you have on that magic moment of your product. Huge resource in your customers. Think about your friends, your network, how you can leverage them. People are eager to help you. And so don't hesitate to reach out. That's an important resource that you all have. Probably familiar with some of these resources here, but I come back to this type of content time and again. So can't speak highly enough about Shreyas's Product Sense course. I linked to it on Maven here. Yeah, I had a chance to take this in the fall of last year. Very mind-blowing. I've been in product management for most of my career and just really, really good um, push that he has on thinking and how to really develop one's product sense, how that relates to the strategy of the work that we do, and ultimately building products that are successful. So Trace's class is awesome. I follow Lenny, Elena Verna, Ravi really closely. There's a bunch of other great content out there as well. Just wanted to list a couple of resources here. And so with that, I'll go into Q&A. Thank you, Fred.
JB, thanks for sharing all of your great insights and those examples. My question is, when you described each example, I think it was kind of zoomed out at a very high level.
For sure.
I appreciate the summary. And so it looked like a straight line. It looked like a straight path. I have to
Ah,
imagine there's a very
yeah.
wide road. I would love to hear some examples of how along that path, how you winded, how you actually had a hypothesis, failed, iterated, had a pivot, like what triggered those pivots and how did the learnings actually inform when and how you pivoted?
Yeah. It's a great question. So thank you. I think that um so you're right. Um Very, very messy, winding road to where all of those products are today. Um, I'll share two examples, so one for Messenger Kids. So yeah, Messenger Kids, the top app for kids messaging globally at this point. I think that an example of a really um, messy early prototype was around just you can kind of video messaging and like video consumption. We knew like anytime you're building something for kids, this is obviously outside of the sensitivity of, you know, Meta's products that it develops. But anytime you're building anything for kids, for younger audiences, there's a lot of sensitivity in that space. And so, we really took that seriously. And the teams that are working on the project still do. I think that we knew from some of our early work that um, the way kids were reacting to um, just AR and VR effects was so strong. There's like those aspects of how those tools and the products could be used. That was really how kids were like playing with the app in a way. And we kind of realized that in some ways, like, for especially for younger kids, like communication in a way on those products is almost like playing and almost like having fun, and it's less about like the information that's exchanged or like especially for younger audiences, like no, the communication is really that it's not practical, right? It's like not like people are saying, talking about anything that sort of relates to like lining up play dates or things like that. That's all, for younger audiences, that's all really handled much more by parents. And so we sort of learned that the way kids were engaging with these effects was really just like playing. And so one of the hypotheses that we had was like, okay, well, like how far can we push that, in the sense of creating something that's like valuable that people would really want to use? How far can we kind of push that play? And so we really just, almost thought about, well, do we sort of do what Snap does at the time, which was like, very controversial feature for, Snap was just like you open the app and you open to the camera. And we're like, well, okay, well, do we test this and like do we open to camera and like, just put a mask like on, right away. And so I think that it didn't work. Our hypothesis was like, okay, great. We know that there's something here in terms of, kids really wanting to lean into these types of effects, be able to use them really easily, make them, a central part of the experience, make it easy for those entry points to be seen. And, um, there's some examples out here. So we kind of had this hypothesis that, okay, you could think about testing this. And so we would test it. And then we had like any, sometimes we were, better than other times. We'd sort of say, okay, well, what does success look like for this experiment here? And then we would measure what that engagement looked like and talk to kids who used it, just get some qualitative feedback as well. We had this amazing research team that really helped us so much with the product development we were doing. And we just, we learned that we just had some really bad ideas there. And so I think that, the point is there's lots of bad ideas and experimentation, and setting up the ability to have those bad ideas come to life in a productive and thoughtful way is a big part of what ultimately helps the innovation curve, which is messy, or curves, which are messy, go faster and get to ultimately what a good sort of productizable and scalable solution can be. So that's one example, and I'll say one for Sidebar really quickly.
Oh,
A
and
very different
actually, maybe
context,
can I ask you a follow-up
please.
question just to that one example?
Yes.
Because I think it's a really good example of you found a data point, you like pushed it to the extreme to test it and
Yeah.
experiment it, and realized you had to reel it back. What was the difference in like what was the data difference between just understanding, oh yeah, there's something fun here with the video, and then you push it to the extreme, and how was the reaction different that told you that okay, that doesn't work?
Yeah. So I think that what is at the early stages, a point that I didn't actually say explicitly, but Fred, what your question brings up for me is that you're looking for big reactions, right? Like one of the things, especially with Sidebar, like early on, is like an example is building products at Meta and growing products at Meta. I led our first growth team for Messenger Kids after we felt like we had something that kids really loved and parents really loved, and we wanted to grow. Facebook has and Meta has just incredible infrastructure to really test and iterate quickly. And so, this product StatSig is something that we implemented at Sidebar. And I remember for Sidebar, so this is sort of related, but I'll kind of try to land the plane for you into your question here, Fred. But I remember for Sidebar, we would be like, okay, cool, let's ship an experiment and we'll look at the results in StatSig. And we would ship it, we would look at the results, and they would just be these gray giant error bars. And we were like, oh, this isn't Meta. Like, you don't have the ability to get just millions of impressions on something very, very quickly. And so it took us some time to kind of unlearn that. It's kind of related to like those skills you have as a founder being really focused on winning is it took us some time to unlearn those aspects. And so when as a founder, and especially in the early stages, you're looking for these big reactions. You're looking for like, you put something out there and you want to take these big, big swings because you want to feel that big reaction. If you put a big swing out there and there's no reaction to it, then it's like, oh, that thing didn't work. And if you put something out there, it's a big reaction negatively, great, like you learn something. Or if it's a big positive reaction, great, you learn something. And so, we sort of have seen this with, tons of different things that we've tried at Sidebar, early stages, growth stages. Um, and then, kind of to the example for Mr. Kids, it's like, yeah, you basically try something and you almost do this like boundary test within reason to really try to put an experiment out there that's an experience that really would push that boundary, and you look for the reaction. And if there's no reaction for a big input, big change, big experiment, that's a bad sign usually. If there's a big negative reaction, then you're looking for that. It's usually obviously a bad sign. If there's a big positive reaction, it's like, okay, great. Like, is this the right boundary? Do we take it too far? Do we roll it back? Like, do we roll it back a little bit? And then you can kind of continue to iterate from there. For us, just for example, when we really tried to push like, the boundaries of what it was like to play with reactions, into social scene in the context of the camera, like, just opening to the camera for kids, like they just wouldn't use the app. They would just close the app. And so we're like, like they don't want that. Like this doesn't really work in this context. And so it was that type of big reaction that we look for, we saw, and we could learn from.
Thanks. Appreciate avoiding the messy middle is what you want to do here. You want extremes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
exactly. Yeah, you want those big reactions.
Okay,
SD,
before you take the next question, I think SD has a
yeah,
question. I'm gonna if it's okay with you, JB, I'm gonna pop up a QR code. So
yep,
everybody can take out your phones, point it to the QR code, because I always do this is I collect feedback on JB's session. And I'll share this with you, JB, the feedback,
love it.
but then it also helps us to figure out who else you want to hear from and other topics that you might want to hear. So, Esty, why don't you go ahead and ask your question and we'll continue to take questions while everybody else is
Sure,
pulling up their phone and pointing it to the QR code and answering 3 questions. So,
sure. I had a question around more like the viability piece and how you guys like the testing and experimentation you did to arrive at like the right price points. Maybe you can talk about it for super interviews. I know that I think there was like a free period at one point, like just that whole sort of journey would be helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So, um, pricing is hard. Obviously, an important part of the journey to figure out if a product works, and then is it viable as a business, and really what does that look like in terms of thinking through paths to scale it. Ultimately, this it's really this interesting. pricing is just, philosophically for a minute, right? Pricing is just this interesting value exchange for, okay, what can I get for, in exchange for the product that I'm buying from you as a customer. And so I think that the point on the philosophy here that I think was like sort of interesting to learn, and something that I feel like I'm always learning about as a founder, is like really thinking about value and how to um, understand it, sort of make that value objective, how to articulate it, and then ultimately, what that looks like um, from a sort of financial perspective, and ultimately that value exchange. And so for super interviews, our once we felt like we had a prototype of a product that was delivering a really strong positive response from people who were testing the prototype, we really started to think about understanding pricing. And so what we did is, I'll just share some of the examples and then what this looks like in terms of the learnings. So early stage, I'll say there's kind of like three phases. Early stage, we just use Calendly, and Calendly has the opportunity, or Calendly gives you the ability to um, test or to have a price for booking a meeting. So we actually just used Calendly plus a price on Calendly for gauging interest from people to pay for time to use the prototype, spend time with us. And so we tested a bunch of different price points there. And that pricing was, those price points gave us some signal on where we think, where we thought we could be. And then that kind of took us to the second phase. And there's lots of great tools out there for pricing. The Von Westendorp survey is a really powerful one. You can kind of understand, what people think is too expensive, reasonable price, etc. Ultimately, pricing is like, as the founder, you're literally just you're really just making up what you think the value is of the product that you're going to put out there and solve a problem for a person with. And so I think that those tools are really helpful, but they should all just be fuel for your intuition as the founder of the product, that ultimately is going to help you, determine that price point that you put out there and stand behind and deliver the value to justify. So, kind of with some of those tools, we did that experimentation. We had our learning, we did our research, and that kind of got us to a second point where we tried when we first launched, we did free trial. And so we did a bunch of research on other similar consumer, basically prosumer, paid consumer products in the space. And we thought a 3-day free trial would be a good way to give people an opportunity to explore the product and then convert to it. And we just learned that didn't work. So when we first launched, publicly the product, free trial just didn't work. We did it 3 days, and essentially the feedback was it wasn't enough time for people to use the product. They would sign up, people would forget about it, then they would get billed, they would be upset. So we had lots of people really frustrated about that experience. And so we, ultimately kind of pivoted our way to where we are right now, which is, a freemium model. So somebody can go to superinterviews.com and you can use you can use all the functionality of the product for free. And then, at a certain point of interview prep, you have to pay for being able to do more interview prep. And so we kind of iterated our way towards that approach, which we'd call that phase 3 for right now. And so I think that, in summary, pricing, I would say as the founder, just know that it's really hard, but you have to trust your gut. And I think that your gut should be informed by your perspective on the value of what you're delivering, It should be informed by the research that you can do, qualitative feedback on pricing, price points, quantitative feedback and surveys, Van Westendorp, and then, experimentation of really trying to put out these experiences with price points, see how people react to them, and then iterate from there.
I guess maybe just to follow up, like how have you or how are you factoring in like the price of the LLMs as well, right? Like given that
Mm,
that's a huge variable in some of these pricing options.
yeah. Well, so tactically, the way that we factor that in, um, and the way I see other, um, so Elena Verna has some really great thoughts on pricing. I think even last week she posted an update as it relates to a change that Lovable made in terms of their pricing model. They went from subscription to be more usage based. So there's some really great um, there's some really great pieces out there from Elena, from other folks that are just talking. Like I think Gamma, really popular. If you don't know Gamma, Grant Lee, who's the founder CEO, he has a great Lenny's podcast. He has a bunch of good content on LinkedIn. Talks about their pricing model and how they arrived to where they are. So some really good content. Obviously, the folks who did. Monetizing innovation and then scaling innovation. Madhavan has some really great thoughts on pricing as well. So, we can link to that in the recap. He did a podcast with Lenny. So there's some really good content out there on how these products are being priced in the age of AI, incorporating, to your question, basically LLM fees and so technically what we did is we just really had an understanding of, well, at the, unit level, what does it look like in terms of cost for somebody to be able to, use all the aspects of this product and try to develop a sense of a range of what that would look like. And then from that, really build what the pricing model would look like to give us, fair coverage on, essentially delivering that product, incorporating the LLM costs of delivering that product, and then any other types of cost that were in delivering that product as well. So you can ultimately kind of, get as close as you can at the unit level of, here's how much money we would make from a customer. Here's what it would cost to deliver that service to the customer. And, here's what ultimately that looks like in terms of the net. How does that look like from a margin perspective? Really running through that, very tactically is an important part of then, kind of aligning the feedback that you're hearing from the market, your understanding of the value, your understanding of these different frames that people have on how to think about, pricing AI-based products and then making sure that that math backs up so that you're getting to a place where you feel comfortable with that price point that you're putting out there.
Okay, I think we have time for one last question.
Did you get your QR code, or do you want me to screen share?
The QR code, the screen share. So I hopefully we got some good feedback. But
Okay, cool.
I can certainly drop the link in the founding member channel for anybody who didn't get a chance to fill out the survey. But thank you, JB, for the time and your brilliant insights and all of the learnings and battle scars over the time. Um, in just working with you, it's like I feel like I wanted to inject a bunch of
I
times because
know.
it's like because Fred made a really good point. It is never a linear journey, right? So I've sort of at least for Sidebar sort of seen the journey and all the experimentation, all the learnings, and some things that you're like confident it's like it's going to work, it's going to
Yeah,
work, and
this
then
one's
it
gonna
just
work.
fails miserably, and it's just things surprise you, and then sometimes the little things you experiment with. It's like, oh, huh, that was pretty easy. And it made a meaningful difference. So I do think fast experimentation, fast learning cycles, looking at the data, talking to members, it's all the basics that I think I mean, so many of us here are product folks. It's all the basics, but it's so interesting to live it and practice every day. Um,
Yeah,
and and then it's never a straight line, but eventually you get there. You just have to have a lot of persistence, I think, and like a curious mindset.
that's right. Well said, huh? And you got to have great people around you, and I think everybody here probably does. And so I'll just end with that. I mean, like Ha, for example, we've been so lucky to get to work with and learn from you with Sidebar and SuperInterviews. And so I think for everybody here, just at these early stages, your network is really excited to help and to give you that feedback, to be that early customer. And so don't hesitate. Going out within reason, going out early with what you have and getting that feedback early is ultimately going to be helpful for you in shaping what you have to get that feedback and iterate and continue on that winding road to make it successful. So don't hesitate to ask for help.
All right. And JB, if folks have follow-up questions, can they email you?
Yeah, you can just email me or hit me up on LinkedIn. So I'll share the. I think I shared the deck with you, Ha, and so
Okay.
yeah, people
I'll
can
share that
reach
out.
out for sure.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Thank you
All
so
right,
much for spending
have a
the
good rest
time.
of your day. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
it's awesome. Thank you.